The wolf pup was turning blue beneath the bridge. Hannah Miller saw him just as the wind tore through her coat and nearly pushed her sideways into the snow. For one stunned second, she thought the small gray shape beside the creek was a bundle of rags. Then it moved. Barely. Oh no. She dropped to her knees, boots sinking into almost 6 inches of fresh snow. The pup was soaked from the freezing water, curled beneath a broken plank where the bridge met the bank. His breathing came fast and shallow. Hannah looked toward the nearest farmhouse, but the windows were dark. Her cabin was nearly half a mile away. The pup tried to stand and immediately sank back down. That decided it. Hannah pulled the thick wool blanket from around her shoulders. It was the only good blanket she owned, the last thing her mother had left her before she died. Without it, Hannah would spend the night beside a weak fire in a drafty cabin with nothing but an old coat for warmth. She wrapped the blanket around the pup anyway. You need it more than I do. His eyes opened, pale gold and strangely intelligent. He did not growl. He simply stared at her as if he had expected the world to keep walking past. Hannah slid one arm beneath him. He was lighter than he looked. Too light. Another gust swept over the creek, and the pup pressed instinctively against her chest. All right, she whispered. We are going home. Halfway up the trail, Hannah heard something behind her. Hoofbeats. Distant at first, then closer. She turned, expecting travelers on the northern road. Instead, she saw lanterns moving between the trees. Several riders. Searching. Noah, a man shouted somewhere in the darkness. Hannah stopped. The pup in her arms went rigid. Do you know that name? She asked softly. His ears flattened. He buried his face deeper into the blanket. New fear moved through him, different from the cold. Hannah tightened her hold. I am not handing you to anyone until I know you are safe. The lanterns passed on the far side of the creek without seeing her. Hannah hurried the rest of the way to her cabin. Inside, she built the fire higher, warmed a towel near the stove, and set the pup beside the hearth. He watched every movement, but refused the bowl of broth she placed near him. Hannah did not push it closer. Your choice. She sat against the opposite wall and rubbed warmth back into her own hands. After several minutes, the pup crawled toward the bowl and drank. Hannah smiled. Good decision. When he finished, he circled twice on the blanket and finally lay down. That was when something silver caught the firelight beneath his damp fur. Hannah leaned closer. A narrow chain rested around his neck, carrying a small metal emblem shaped like a wolf beneath a crown. She had seen that symbol once before, stamped on royal tax documents. Her heartbeat stumbled. Who are you? The pup lifted his head but gave no answer. Outside, a horn sounded from the forest. Then another answered from the east. The search was getting closer. Hannah reached toward the chain but stopped before touching it. The pup's eyes followed her hand. It is fine. I will not take it. His body relaxed. Minutes later, he fell asleep. Hannah spread her old coat on the floor beside the hearth and prepared to spend the night there. Sometime after midnight, she woke to unexpected warmth. The pup had left the blanket near the fire, dragged it across the floor, and curled against her side. Half covered him, half covered her. Hannah stared at the small creature, sharing the only warmth she had given him. Then, through the quiet winter darkness, someone knocked on her door. Hannah froze beneath the shared blanket as the knock came again, slower this time, followed by a man's voice from outside. Please, I am looking for my son. The wolf pup lifted his head at once. His ears rose, but he did not run to the door. Instead, he pressed closer to Hannah's side. That told her more than the words did. She pushed herself upright and kept one hand on the blanket. Who are you? She called. Caleb Morgan. The name meant nothing to her at first. Then another voice sounded farther back. Your Majesty, the tracks stop here. Hannah's breath caught. She looked down at the silver emblem around the pup's neck. The wolf beneath the crown. Of course. She opened the door only a few inches. A tall man stood in the snow, dark hair damp with melting frost, his coat hanging open as if he had forgotten the cold entirely. Several guards waited behind him, but he did not look like a king in that moment. He looked like a father who had not slept. His eyes moved past Hannah and found the pup by the fire. Noah. The wolf pup stood. Hannah expected him to rush forward. He took one step, then stopped. Caleb's face changed. Not anger. Something quieter and more painful. He lowered himself slowly to one knee outside the doorway. I am here. Noah watched him. Hannah stayed silent. One of the guards started forward, But Caleb lifted a hand without looking away from his son. No one moves. That surprised her. The most powerful man in the territory was waiting for permission from a 7-year-old child. Noah finally crossed the room, still wrapped in Hannah's blanket. Caleb did not grab him. He simply opened his arms. After a long second, Noah stepped into them. Caleb closed his eyes as he held him. "Are you warm?" he whispered. Noah nodded against his shoulder. Caleb looked up at Hannah. "Did he sleep?" "Not who are you? Not why was he here?" "Just that." "A little," Hannah said. "He was very cold when I found him." Caleb's gaze dropped to the blanket. "That is yours." "It was. You gave it to him." Hannah folded her arms against the chill. "He needed it." Something unreadable passed through Caleb's expression. Behind him, a guard approached with a heavy royal cloak. Caleb took it, but instead of wrapping it around himself, he held it out to Hannah. "Then you need this." She hesitated. "I am fine." "You are shivering." She was. Pride did not change temperature. Hannah accepted the cloak. It was warm from the guard's shoulders and far heavier than anything she owned. "Thank you." Noah shifted back into his human form beneath the blanket, small and pale but alert. Caleb immediately checked his face and hands. "Are you hurt?" No, his voice was soft. "Why did you leave the winter lesson?" Noah looked away. The warmth in the cabin seemed to thin. Hannah saw Caleb notice it too. "We can talk later," he said. Noah's shoulders loosened. That was another surprise. Caleb stood and turned to Hannah. "I owe you more than thanks." Hannah shook her head. "You do not owe me anything. You kept my son alive through the coldest night we have had this winter. I found a child who needed help." Caleb studied her for a moment. "What is your name?" "Hannah Miller." Noah looked up immediately. "Hannah." It was the first time he had said her name. Then he tightened both hands around the old wool blanket and added, "Can she come with us?" Hannah looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at his son. And suddenly the question was no longer whether the Alpha King had found Noah. It was why Noah was already afraid Hannah might disappear. Hannah did not answer Noah immediately. She looked around her tiny cabin, at the cooling fire, the empty broth bowl, and the chair where she had planned to spend the rest of winter nights alone. Going anywhere with the Alpha King was the kind of decision sensible people did not make before sunrise. "I cannot just leave," she said. Noah's face fell. Caleb noticed. "You do not have to." His answer came without hesitation. "We can bring a healer here, make sure Noah is warm, and leave when he is ready." Hannah looked at him more carefully. She had expected royal authority. Instead, he was giving her an exit. Noah tugged the blanket closer around his shoulders. "I do not want to go yet." Caleb crouched again. "All right." Another surprise. One of the guards shifted uneasily outside. "Your Majesty, the road will worsen once the snow starts again." Caleb glanced toward the gray sky. "Then we have an hour." Hannah felt the shape of the situation change. He was not ordering his son home. He was waiting. "Would anyone like coffee?" she asked, because suddenly standing in a doorway discussing royal family problems felt stranger than boiling water. Caleb almost smiled. "Very much." 10 minutes later, the Alpha King sat at Hannah's small kitchen table with both hands around a chipped mug while Noah ate toast beside him. The guards remained outside, giving them privacy. Hannah stayed near the stove. Noah was quieter now, but no longer trembling. Caleb watched him closely. "Noah, I need to understand why you left." The boy stared at his toast. "You said you would come." Caleb went still. Hannah did too. "Come where?" "The winter lesson." Noah's voice was small. "You promised you would watch me shift with the younger group." Caleb slowly set down his mug. Hannah saw recognition land before he spoke. "The council meeting." Noah's eyes lifted. "You said this time was different." Caleb's face tightened with regret. "I know. I waited." There was no accusation in the child's voice. Somehow that made it worse. Everybody else had someone there. Hannah looked away, giving them the dignity of pretending she was busy with the kettle. Caleb leaned forward. "Noah, I should have been there. But you were not." "No," Caleb did not defend himself. "I was not." Noah rubbed his thumb over the edge of the blanket. "I thought if I went to find you, then you would have to see me." Hannah's hand stopped over the stove. Caleb closed his eyes for one brief second. When he opened them, the king was gone again. Only the father remained. "You should never have to disappear to make me notice you." Noah's mouth trembled. "Then why do you always leave?" Caleb had no quick answer. Hannah understood then that this was not about one missed lesson. It was about promises slowly losing their meaning. She turned from the stove. "He believed you." Caleb looked at her. Hannah kept her voice gentle. That is why it hurt. He absorbed the words without resistance. Outside, snow began tapping softly against the window. Noah reached across the table and touched Caleb's sleeve. Are you mad at you? Caleb shook his head. No, even because I ran away. I am frightened by what happened. That is different. Noah seemed to consider that. Then he leaned against his father's arm. Caleb did not move for several seconds, as if afraid the moment might disappear. Hannah felt something in her chest soften. A guard knocked lightly. Your Majesty, we should leave soon. Caleb nodded, then looked at Hannah. Noah will need a quiet few days. He seems to trust you. Hannah raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerously close to a royal request. It is an invitation. Noah looked at her hopefully. Caleb continued. 3 days at Graypine. You may return whenever you choose. Hannah glanced at the old blanket wrapped around Noah, then at the royal cloak still resting over her shoulders. 3 days was not a life. It was not a promise. It was a choice. 3 days, she said. Noah smiled for the first time that morning. Caleb nodded. 3 days. Hannah did not know yet that by the end of them, the hardest promise in Graypine would not be the one Caleb had broken to his son. It would be the one she was beginning to make to herself. Graypine Palace looked less like a home than Hannah expected. It was beautiful, certainly, with high windows, polished wood floors, and enough fireplaces to warm a village. But the first thing Noah did after arriving was ignore every grand hallway and pull Hannah toward the kitchen. This way, he said, still carrying the old wool blanket around his shoulders like a cape. Caleb followed several steps behind, speaking quietly with one of the guards before dismissing him. Hannah noticed that too. He could have handed Noah over to servants the moment they arrived. He did not. The kitchen was bright and warm, filled with the smell of bread and cinnamon. A gray-haired cook looked startled when the Alpha King walked in. Your Majesty, breakfast can be served in the dining room. Noah shook his head immediately. Here. Caleb looked at him. Here it is. The cook blinked, then smiled. Hannah sat at the long wooden table while Noah climbed onto a stool beside her. Caleb removed his coat and opened a cabinet. What are you doing? Hannah asked. Making breakfast. Noah gave her a serious look. He cannot cook. Caleb glanced over his shoulder. That is an exaggeration. 5 minutes later, smoke curled from a skillet. Hannah covered her mouth to hide a laugh. You were saying? Caleb stared at the burned bread. The pan is too hot. That sounds like something the pan would say. Noah laughed, bright and sudden. Caleb turned toward the sound, and the disappointment in his face softened into something almost relieved. He tried again. The second grilled cheese was edible. The third was actually good. Noah took one bite and announced, we should eat breakfast together every day. Caleb's hand paused over his coffee. Hannah saw it happen. A simple request becoming a test. Every day I am at Graypine, he said carefully. Noah frowned. That is not the same. Caleb took a breath. No, it is not. Hannah expected him to soften the promise until it meant nothing. Instead, he set down his mug. Breakfast at 7. If I have to leave early, I tell you the night before. If something changes, I tell you myself. Noah studied him. Not Daniel. Not Daniel. Not a guard. Not a guard. Noah nodded once. Okay. Hannah felt the moment settle between them. Trust was not returning all at once. It was being rebuilt in pieces small enough for a child to hold. Later, Noah showed Hannah the greenhouse, the library, and a narrow window seat where he said he went when the palace became too loud. By afternoon, Caleb found them there. He held 2 cups of hot chocolate and 1 coffee. You remembered, Noah said. Caleb handed him the cup with extra marshmallows. I am trying. Noah looked at Hannah as if Caleb had just performed a miracle. Hannah smiled, but something inside her shifted. She had spent years teaching herself not to expect people to show up. Watching Caleb try made expectation feel dangerous again. That evening, as Hannah unpacked the small bag a servant had brought from her cabin, she found an envelope pushed beneath the door. Her name was written across the front in a handwriting she had not seen in years. Hannah went cold before she even broke the seal. The letter was from her old pack. The first sentence made her sit down. Lucas was dead. The second changed everything else. Property that had once belonged to her family was now legally hers, and if she wanted it, she had 30 days to return and claim it. Hannah read the words twice. Land. A house. Enough money to stop scraping by through winters. Real independence. For the first time in years, She had somewhere she could go that belonged entirely to her. Then a soft knock came at the door. Hannah. Noah called from the hall. Dad says breakfast is still at 7 tomorrow. She closed her eyes. 3 days at Graypine had sounded simple when she agreed to them. Now, before the first day had even ended, Hannah had been given 2 possible homes, and she had no idea which one would ask more courage of her. Hannah did not sleep much that night. By 6:30 the next morning, she had read the letter so many times that the paper had softened at the folds. Lucas was gone. The man who had once rejected her in front of an entire pack had become a fact written in black ink, and Hannah was surprised by how little anger remained. What unsettled her was everything that came after. Her family's old property had been restored to her name. 12 acres, a small farmhouse, and enough savings from a disputed inheritance to give her something she had never possessed before. Security. Choice. A future no one else controlled. At 7 exactly, she walked into the kitchen and found Caleb already there. Noah sat at the table in pajamas, counting marshmallows into 3 mugs of hot chocolate. You are late by 30 seconds, he told Hannah. She glanced at the clock. I will try to recover from the shame. Noah grinned. Caleb noticed the envelope in her hand. His expression changed, but he did not ask until Noah had carried his drink to the window seat. Bad news. Hannah looked down at the letter. Complicated news. Caleb waited. That made it easier. My old pack contacted me. His posture became still. The one that rejected you? Yes. Do they want something? For once, apparently not. She handed him the letter. Caleb read silently, then looked up. This property is yours. It seems that way. That is good. Hannah searched his face for disappointment, resistance, anything that suggested he wanted Graypine to remain her only option. She found none. You think I should go? I think you should see what belongs to you before deciding anything. His answer landed differently than she expected. Even if I do not come back. Caleb's gaze held hers. Especially then. A choice only matters if both roads are real. Before Hannah could answer, Noah returned with a plate of toast. What roads? Hannah folded the letter. I might have to travel for a little while. Noah stopped. When? Not today. Relief came too quickly across his face. Hannah felt a small ache behind her ribs. There is something I need to see. A house that used to belong to my family. Noah looked at Caleb. Can we go too? Caleb shook his head gently. It is Hannah's decision. Noah frowned. I do not like decisions. Hannah smiled. Neither do most adults. The morning continued, but the mood had changed. Noah followed Hannah through the greenhouse, asking questions about the house. Did it have stairs? Was there a fireplace? Were there trees? When Hannah said she did not know, he looked almost offended by the mystery. By afternoon, the palace was preparing for Graypine's winter festival, and Noah dragged Hannah into a storage room full of paper stars and strings of pine branches. You have to stay until the festival, he said. Hannah paused. Why? Because Dad promised he would come this year. The words struck softly but deeply. Caleb had already missed one promise. This one mattered. When is it? 3 days. Hannah almost laughed. Her original 3-day visit had somehow become a countdown to another choice. That evening, she found Caleb alone in the library sorting festival schedules. Noah asked me to stay. Caleb closed the folder. You do not have to. I know. Hannah looked toward the fire. I want to. Something warm flickered in his eyes. Not triumph. Gratitude. Then stay for the festival. After that, I am going to see the property. Caleb nodded. Good. The certainty in his voice surprised her. You make it very difficult to accuse you of trying to keep me here. I am trying not to. Hannah looked at him. Why? Caleb was quiet for a moment. Because if you ever stay, I need to know it was not because no one needed you. Not because I asked. Not because Graypine made leaving difficult. Hannah's heartbeat slowed. Then why? Caleb met her eyes. Because you wanted to. A knock interrupted them. Daniel Brooks stepped inside carrying a weather report. The storm has changed course. It will reach Graypine tomorrow night. Caleb glanced at the map. How severe? Daniel's expression tightened. Severe enough that the east wing may lose heat again. Hannah looked toward the dark windows. The festival was 3 days away. Her departure was supposed to come after that. But the storm had just introduced a new question none of them had planned for. What would happen when the palace became cold enough to remind Hannah of the night she had first chosen to give away her only warmth? By late afternoon, the storm had swallowed Graypine in white. Snow pressed against the tall windows, wind rattled the shutters, and servants moved through the halls carrying extra blankets before the temperature dropped further. Hannah helped Noah hang paper stars in the smaller family room, while Caleb and Daniel checked the heating lines in the east wing. "Will the festival be canceled?" Noah asked. Hannah tied another star above the fireplace. "Maybe delayed." His face fell. "Dad said he would be there." Hannah looked toward the door. That promise again. Before she could answer, Caleb entered with snow melting across his shoulders. "I will be there." Noah studied him. "Even if the storm gets worse." Caleb removed his gloves. "If the festival happens, I will be there. If it does not, we make our own." Noah considered that, then nodded. The answer was better than a promise Caleb could not control. An hour later, the first heating line failed. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "The east wing is losing heat faster than expected." Caleb immediately ordered the guest rooms cleared, and everyone moved toward the central halls. Hannah gathered Noah's decorations while servants carried lamps and quilts. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The room went dim. Noah froze. Hannah noticed before anyone else. "Hey." She crouched beside him. "Look at me. I am fine." His voice said otherwise. Caleb came closer, but stopped a few feet away. "What do you need?" Noah swallowed. "Not the big hall." Caleb glanced toward Daniel. The central hall was warmer, but crowded with guards, staff, and visiting pack families. "There is the old family room," Hannah said. Caleb looked at her. "The fireplace still works there." Daniel nodded. "It should stay warm through the night." 10 minutes later, the three of them sat in a room Caleb had not used in years. It was smaller than Hannah expected, with faded photographs, worn armchairs, and a stone fireplace that crackled steadily. Noah built a nest from cushions near the hearth. Caleb returned from a cabinet carrying the largest wool blanket Hannah had ever seen. Without ceremony, he draped it around her shoulders first. Hannah blinked. "Noah is colder." "Noah has 3 blankets." From the floor, Noah raised one hand. 4. Hannah looked down at the heavy wool around her. The gesture struck somewhere deeper than it should have. The last time cold had surrounded her, she had given away her only blanket because someone else needed it more. This time, no one asked her to be the one who went without. Noah climbed onto the couch between them and pulled half the blanket over himself anyway. "Now everybody has it." Caleb smiled. "Apparently that settles the matter." For a while, they played cards by firelight. Noah invented rules whenever he started losing. Caleb accused him of royal corruption. Hannah laughed until her cheeks hurt. Then Noah fell asleep between them, one hand still curled around a paper star. The storm continued outside, but the room had gone quiet. Hannah reached to adjust the blanket over Noah at the same moment Caleb did. Their fingers touched. Warmth moved through her, deeper than the fire, sudden and unmistakable. She pulled in a breath. Caleb went still. His eyes met hers. Something ancient seemed to recognize itself between them, but he did not say the word she was already thinking. "Mate." Hannah's heart began to race. Caleb withdrew his hand first. "Are you all right?" She looked at him, surprised by the question. "Not what did you feel? Not do you know what this means? Just whether she was all right." "I do not know yet." Caleb nodded once. "Then we do nothing until you do." Relief came so quickly it almost frightened her more than the bond itself. Before Hannah could answer, footsteps approached in the hallway. Daniel opened the door, his expression careful. "Caleb, there is another problem." Caleb stood. "What now?" Daniel glanced at Hannah, then back at him. One of the council elders felt the bond activate. The warmth in the room seemed to change instantly. Hannah tightened the blanket around herself. "They know." Daniel nodded. "By morning, they all will." By breakfast, Graypine already felt different. The storm still pressed against the windows, but the greater pressure came from inside the palace. Hannah could feel it in the lowered voices of servants and the way 2 council messengers waited outside the family dining room before Caleb had finished his coffee. Noah noticed too. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. Caleb set down his cup immediately. "No." "Then why is everyone whispering?" Hannah looked at Caleb. He did not soften the truth into something useless. "Because some adults learned something private and decided it was their business." Noah frowned. "That sounds rude." Hannah almost smiled. "It is." A knock came at the door. Daniel stepped inside. "The council is asking for both of you." Caleb glanced at Hannah. "You do not have to go." She felt the old instinct to disappear rise inside her, familiar and automatic. Then she remembered the letter in her room, the property waiting for her, and the strange freedom of knowing she actually had somewhere else to go. I want to hear what they think they are entitled to decide. Caleb's mouth tightened with something close to approval. Then we go together. The council had gathered in the West Chamber because the main hall was still too cold. Councilman Richard Hale stood the moment Hannah entered. Your Majesty, this is extraordinary news. Hannah disliked the word immediately. Is it? Hale seemed surprised she had spoken. A confirmed royal mate bond could stabilize succession concerns, quiet several rival packs, and give Graypine the Luna it has lacked for years. Hannah looked at Caleb. His expression had gone very still. You learned about this less than 12 hours ago, she said. And you already turned it into a political solution. Hale folded his hands. With respect, Miss Miller, royal bonds have never been merely personal. Mine is. The room fell silent. Hale turned to Caleb. Surely you understand the need for an announcement at the Winter Festival. Caleb did not even glance at him. He looked at Hannah instead. What do you want? The question moved through her more powerfully than any command could have. Nothing announced. Then nothing is announced. Hale's face tightened. Your Majesty, the allied packs are already asking questions. Caleb finally looked at him. Then answer honestly. Tell them there is no engagement, no claim, and no Luna. Hannah felt several council members stare at her. One woman spoke carefully. And if Miss Miller leaves? Caleb's answer came without hesitation. Then she leaves. Something inside Hannah went quiet. No trap, no hidden condition, no royal version of kindness with a lock behind it. Hale tried one final argument. You would allow the future of Graypine to depend on one woman's uncertainty? Hannah stepped forward before Caleb could answer. No. Graypine's future should depend on whether its leaders can govern without turning one woman into an answer for every problem. No one replied. Caleb ended the meeting soon after, but the victory did not feel simple. Outside the chamber, Daniel caught up with them. The festival committee wants to know whether tomorrow's ceremony will continue. Caleb looked toward the windows. Snow had begun to ease. It continues. Hannah studied him. Even after this? Especially after this. Noah has been waiting for it. That evening, Hannah found Noah in the old family room folding paper stars. Dad is still coming tomorrow, right? Yes. And you? Hannah hesitated. Yes. He smiled and handed her a crooked silver star. This one is yours. She took it. Why? Because you stayed. The words warmed her and frightened her in equal measure. Later, alone in her room, Hannah packed part of her bag. Not because she had decided to leave forever. Because after the festival, she still intended to see the land that belonged to her. She needed to know whether Graypine felt like home because she had chosen it, or because everyone here had slowly become difficult to leave. When Caleb found her in the hallway, coat folded over one arm, he understood immediately. You are still going. After the festival. Pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. Good. Hannah blinked. Good. You should see the life waiting for you before you choose this one. She looked at him for a long moment. And if I choose that life? Caleb's voice stayed gentle. Then I will be grateful you were here at all. Hannah walked away with the silver paper star in her pocket, realizing the hardest part of being free was that no one was going to make the decision easier for her. The winter festival began beneath a sky washed clean by the storm. Snow covered Graypine in soft white layers. Lanterns glowed along the courtyard walls, and children carried silver paper stars through the halls while musicians tuned their instruments near the great fireplace. Hannah stood beside Noah at the entrance to the main hall, adjusting the scarf around his neck. Too tight? She asked. He shook his head. Perfect. Then his eyes moved past her. Caleb was walking toward them. He was on time. Not almost. Not after the ceremony had started. On time. Noah noticed too. His whole face changed. You came. Caleb stopped in front of him. I said I would. Noah looked at Hannah, as if asking her to confirm that promises could actually survive. She smiled. He did. The festival moved quickly after that. Noah performed with the younger wolves, shifting for only a few seconds before returning to human form. No one forced him to continue. Caleb applauded first. Hannah felt proud of both of them. Then she noticed Councilman Hale, near the platform, speaking urgently with two elders. A servant approached Caleb carrying a sealed card. He read it once, then folded it in half. What is it? Hannah asked. They prepared an announcement anyway. Her stomach dropped. About us. Caleb nodded. They planned to introduce you as future Luna after Noah's ceremony. Hannah looked toward the crowded hall. Hundreds of eyes. Hundreds of assumptions waiting to become facts. What are you going to do? Caleb handed the card back to the servant. Cancel it. No speech. No confrontation. The servant hurried away. Minutes later, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the platform and announced only the closing dance and winter blessing. Hale stared across the room at Caleb, furious. Caleb did not react. Hannah understood the choice for what it was. He had just accepted political consequences without making her carry them. Later, Noah pulled both of them into a circle of children hanging stars from the lower branches of the festival tree. Hannah tied her crooked silver star beside his. Caleb added one above them. 3, Noah said. That looks better. Hannah smiled, but the ache in her chest deepened. The more beautiful the evening became, the harder leaving felt. That was exactly why she still had to go. After the final song, Noah found her near the carriage entrance with her travel bag. He stopped when he saw it. Today. Hannah crouched beside him. I told you I was going to see the house. His mouth tightened. I know. She waited for him to ask her not to leave. He did not. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small knitted scarf, uneven and slightly too short. I made this with Mrs. Carter from the sewing room. Hannah blinked. You made it? Most of it. How much is most? Some. She laughed softly and wrapped it around her neck. I love it. Noah looked relieved. It is for when you get cold. The words nearly undid her. Caleb approached behind him. He carried no royal cloak this time. No symbol. No gift meant to weigh on the decision. The road is clear, he said. Daniel arranged a driver as far as the southern station. Hannah nodded. Thank you. Noah looked between them. When are you coming back? Hannah did not lie. I do not know. Caleb placed a hand lightly on Noah's shoulder. That is okay. Noah swallowed. Then he surprised Hannah by hugging her once and stepping back first. Come back only if you want to. Hannah looked at Caleb. He had taught his son the same freedom he had given her. I will remember that. She climbed into the carriage. As Graypine disappeared behind snow-covered pines, Hannah touched the little scarf around her neck and felt the mate bond resting quietly beneath everything else. It did not pull her backward. It simply existed. For the first time, she was not leaving because someone had rejected her. She was leaving because she had somewhere else she was allowed to choose. And the question waiting at the end of the road was no longer whether she could build a life alone. It was whether independence still counted as freedom if the life she truly wanted included other people. 3 weeks later, Hannah stood on the porch of the farmhouse that now belonged to her and realized she had everything she once thought she needed. The roof was sound. The kitchen was small but bright. 12 acres of winter fields stretched beyond the fence, and the bank papers in her desk drawer carried only her name. No pack could take it. No mate could claim it. No one could tell her to leave. She should have felt complete. Instead, every morning at 7, she found herself looking at the kitchen clock. She missed Noah's serious negotiations over breakfast. She missed Caleb pretending burned bread was intentional. She missed the sound of people moving through a house that expected her to remain part of it. For the first week, Hannah told herself that missing them did not mean she should return. For the second, she reminded herself that independence had taken years to earn. By the third, she finally understood the mistake. Freedom was not proving she could live without anyone. Freedom was knowing she could and still choosing connection. The next morning, Hannah packed one bag. She did not send a letter. She did not ask permission. She locked the farmhouse, left instructions with the neighbor, and took the northbound coach toward Graypine. Snow had begun falling by the time the palace towers appeared beyond the pines. Hannah's heartbeat became ridiculous. What if 3 weeks had changed things? What if Noah had stopped waiting? What if Caleb had decided her silence was an answer? The carriage had barely stopped before the front doors opened. Noah came running down the steps. Hannah. She barely had time to set down her bag before he reached her. He hugged her hard, then stepped back almost immediately, as though remembering the promise he had made not to hold too tightly. You came back. I did. His eyes searched her face. For how long? Hannah smiled. That depends. Noah's expression turned cautious. Then he held out something folded over his arms. Her old wool blanket, the one she had wrapped around him beside the frozen creek. It had been cleaned and repaired, every worn edge carefully stitched. In one corner, 3 small wolves had been embroidered in silver thread. One tall, one small, one between them. Hannah touched the stitching. Who did this? Noah looked proud. Mrs. Carter helped. Dad did one ear. A familiar voice came from the doorway. It was a difficult ear. Hannah looked up. Caleb stood there without guards, crown, or ceremony. Just Caleb. He walked toward her slowly and stopped several feet away. Are you visiting? The question was gentle, but she heard everything underneath it. Hannah looked at the farmhouse keys still in her hand. She could go back tomorrow. Next week. Any time. The knowledge made her answer easy. No, Caleb's eyes changed. Hannah took another step toward him. I think I am coming home. Noah made a sound of pure triumph, then immediately tried to pretend he had not. Caleb smiled, but he still did not reach for her. What about your land? I am keeping it. Good. Hannah laughed softly. That was not the reaction I expected. You should have something that is yours. His answer settled warmly inside her. I want Graypine too, she said. But I want it because I choose it, not because I have nowhere else. Caleb nodded. Then that is the only way I want you here. Hannah looked at him for a long moment. There is one more thing. What? I loved you before I decided what the bond meant. Caleb's breath caught. Good. His voice became quieter. Because I loved you before I knew what to call it. Noah looked between them. Does this mean breakfast can be 3 people again? Hannah reached for one end of the repaired blanket. Caleb took the other. Tomorrow at 7, she said. 30 seconds late counts, Noah warned. That evening, they sat together in the old family room beside the fireplace. Noah fell asleep between them, curled beneath the same blanket that had once been the only warm thing Hannah owned. Now it covered all 3 of them. Caleb's hand rested beside hers on the couch. He waited. Hannah turned her palm upward and closed the distance herself. Outside, snow gathered quietly over Graypine. Inside, Hannah still owned 12 acres, a farmhouse, and the right to leave whenever she wanted. That was exactly why staying finally felt like home.